Hey guys, Tammy here, and in this video, I'm going to give you 4 tips for speaking in child custody court. Now, when I talk about presenting in court, I always like to tell people, look, public speaking is the number one fear for most people. It ranks higher than death for many people. So it really is nerve-wracking to stand up and speak in court, but I'm going to give you 4 tips that are going to help you be successful in your presentation in the courtroom. Now, let me just quickly remind you, if you like this content, don't forget to hit like and also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released each week. Probably the number one thing that I share with people when they're going to present in court is be brief. And that sounds easy enough, but it's actually pretty hard to do because we kind of get this feeling like, oh, if I don't say this, if I don't say that, if the judge doesn't know all these things, then they're not going to, understand what's happening and they're not going to find in my favor. Or we have the feeling that, well, I really want the judge to hear me. I really want the judge to understand. I want the judge to see how difficult my ex is. And, that second one is more of an emotional thing. It's needing to be heard, which is not what the court is there for. And in the first instance, if you're trying to make sure the judge has all this information, then what's happening is you're kind of throwing everything at the wall to see what'll stick, and you're not really honing in on the key points. Thomas used to always say that you have to have 3, maybe 4 key points, and you want to maybe just have 1 or 2 examples of each max, because if you can hone in on those 3 or 4 key points and you kind of keep bringing everything back to whatever your overall theme is around those 3 or 4 points, that's going to be more impactful. For instance, if we're worried about the children's safety, let's say there's a drug or alcohol or a mental health issue or whatever, that we're worried about the children's safety, then the first thing that we would say is, okay, well, the safety issue is the overarching issue, right? And point 1 might be, the parent drinks when the children are in their care. And point 2 might be the parent has a history of DUIs. And point 3 might be that the parent is not in any kind of program or therapy or rehab or whatever. And so all of our points go back to that main theme and support it. And we're not going into all the other details of, every little event, every little granular event that has happened. We really want to, keep it brief so that we're honing in on the key points that we know the court is going to care about. Again, I've talked about this, education for yourself to understand what those key points are for the court is critical in these situations. The next thing I will tell you is you want to tell a story. This is a great tip that I learned from one of the attorneys here in San Diego, who I personally think is a fantastic attorney. And he always talks about how you got to tell a story. And so it's almost like you want to make it interesting. You want to hold the judge's attention, but you also, the point of that is that's how you get the judge to understand what's going on. And so by telling a story, I don't mean that we're writing a 300-page novel or that we're reading a 300-page novel in court. I mean, we're still being brief and sticking to point number 1, but we're doing it through a story. So to take my previous example of the drinking issue, you would say something along the lines of, Your Honor, I'm concerned, throughout the marriage, the other parent struggled with alcohol issues. And, in, 2015 had a DUI, in 2018 had another DUI. The children were in the car. To my knowledge, the other parent is not currently in any kind of, rehab or taking any steps to try to deal with the alcohol issues. And I'm really concerned for the children's safety And, this has been an ongoing problem for the last 10 years. And, I feel like if it doesn't get addressed, that the children are going to continue to be at risk. So I'm giving the background, and I'm kind of painting that story, but I'm not going off on tangents and going down little rabbit holes through the story to where I'm losing my key points of the story. The other thing the court's looking for is, does your story hold together? So if my points are, they had a DUI 20 years ago when they were 20 years old, and now they're 40 years old, and now they're married with kids, and before they were young and single and all this kind of stuff. And they did whatever was required, to handle that DUI originally. They went through whatever process they needed to go through to handle that through the courts or whatever their issue was. And now there hasn't been any other incidences in 20 years, and now they're, an employed person and a parent and all those kind of things. And I'm saying, oh, well, I want a breathalyzer, I want SoberLink. I want the parent to breathalyze every time they come get the child or whatever. It's kind of like that concern, that story doesn't really hang together. It's like, really, there was one incident 20 years ago when the other parent was young and stupid, as we all were once upon a time. And now suddenly that should follow that parent 20 years later when there's been no other incidences. And, you've been married to this person for 10 years and you've been parenting with them and leaving the child with them and all that kind of thing. But now, because you're going through a divorce, you're bringing up this old history that the story just kind of doesn't really make sense. It's like, if you were so concerned about it, why would you have been leaving the child with the parent during the marriage and all those kinds of things? And it's only an issue now that you're going through a divorce. See, this is what the court's looking for. And they're talking about a story hanging together. It's like, would a reasonable person have done this? I had we had a client one time who testified that there was a gun in the house, and that this person felt like the other parent left the gun out kind of like on display, and they took that as a threat. But then the person went on to testify that they remained in the house that night with the child, the young child, and slept in their bed. And the court was kind of like, well, why didn't you leave? And the person was like, well, I was tired, and it's just like, that doesn't really make sense. Like, if you really thought your life was in danger, you're going to have enough adrenaline to push you through any tiredness that you may be feeling. So your story needs to hang together. It needs to make sense. The fourth tip is really one of the most important to me, and it is having respect and or coming from a perspective of humility. So regardless of what we're saying, we need to say it with an air of humility. Even if I'm saying I'm concerned about the children's safety because the other parent is drinking, I'm not doing it from a perspective of this person is an awful person because they drink and they have this issue, and they drive with the kids and they and I'm attacking them and I'm being really intense, and I'm kind of acting like I'm a better person than them. Like, I would never do this. I'm the better parent. I'm the more stable parent. And I'm kind of giving that tone to what I'm saying, even if I'm not necessarily saying those words out loud, then I'm really not coming at it from a perspective of humility. And honestly, if your core thing is you're worried about the kids, and your core thing isn't this other parent's an awful parent, then you're automatically going to have that humility of, hey, court, please just help me. I'm really worried about, the children. And I think when you have kind of that more level of intensity with things, sometimes the court won't listen to you because they'll either view you as hysterical or being a jerk or whatever, and not having respect for the courtroom, for the formality of it, for the judge's role and all that kind of stuff. And so the last thing that you want to do is display any form of condescension or disrespect for the court and the court process. Okay. Get your mindset before you go in of, okay, I need to come from this place of humility and just like, court, please help me. I'm worried about the children. I'm worried about, A, B, C, or D. And, I need your help to solve this problem kind of mindset as you're giving your presentation of what you think the issues are. So just to recap for you, 4 tips to help you with speaking in child custody court. Number 1, be brief. Number 2, tell a story with your through line, as Thomas used to always talk about. Number 3, make sure your story holds together and makes sense from the perspective of what a reasonable person would do in that situation. And number 4, approach the court with humility, respect, deference, that type of approach. So if you find these videos helpful and you'd like to talk to me some more about your own personal situation, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There's a link on that page. You can book a free initial strategy session with me. I would love to talk to you and see if I might be able to help you in your custody case. See you guys next time.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.